In yesterday's video about the upcoming total eclipse on Monday, I focused on the role of Neptune as it relates to the political landscape. But if that is definitely a concerning topic these days, sadly, the coronavirus pandemic has to be even bigger. We're at a point where more Americans are dying on a daily basis than in the 9/11 terrorist attack. And with infection numbers exceeding 200,000 daily, the situation isn't looking good at all. Most sobering has to be the 100,000 plus currently hospitalized due to COVID and the fact that hospital capacity is being strained to the limit. Unfortunately, we've been led into this mess by the most incompetent and malevolent president in history. And even as a normal president, the kind that take their job seriously and they're actually concerned about other people, even as Joe Biden enters the fray in January, it's looking more and more like he'll be inheriting a raging pandemic that will not disappear anywhere near instantly. I think this eclipse is serving to really highlight the problem, and we can see it by linking it to the USA chart. From 23 plus degrees Sagittarius, the eclipse squares Neptune in Virgo, which is a health sign and a broad signal that the health system, particularly as it pertains to the government, 10th house, is under heavy challenge. Meanwhile, Mercury, the ruler of that Neptune, is also under heavy siege, since on top of getting oppositions directly by Pluto, but still under the spell of the collective energy Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto emit as a transiting conjunction, the eclipse also makes a quincunx to that Mercury. And Eris squaring it adds a lot of extra pressure. Note that Mercury is in the 8th sign of infections and literal death. At the same time, the eclipse also opposes Mars, which is ruler of the 12th sign of serious health matters as well as institutions like hospitals, and it's in Gemini, the sign of the respiratory system. Now, even as the eclipse is serving to highlight the horror of it all, it's also a new moon starting point, and it's curious that it is approximately coincident with the beginning of vaccine rollouts, which might mean that the mid-December period is the peak of the crises, and the numbers will either start to improve from here or else perhaps at some point during the next 29 days of this lunar cycle. Saturn and Jupiter getting out of Capricorn and into Aquarius soon after the eclipse should be very helpful on several levels, including forward progress on the COVID pandemic. But the early degrees of Aquarius still aren't great because they make quincunxes to Venus and Jupiter, and it will be late January for Jupiter and late February for Saturn before they switch to trines to Uranus, which are going to be much better. Bottom line, this eclipse new moon correlates with a pretty grim state of affairs in the health of our country, but I think it also has a good chance to be the starting point of better times.